What's going on, everybody? This is your buddy Scooby here, back with another LolCow TCG artist interview. And today we have Artic with us. How you doing, Artic?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's very nice to hear. Very nice to hear. So let's start off left to right, going over these cards that were illustrated by Artic himself. So starting from Volume One, we have Mr. Medicare the Forbidden One, De Guapa, as well as Bug Iron Gunslinger, which is a special one that shows up in Volume One, as well as the two-player Scribe and LolCow decks. Next up, we got Holiday 23, the Primetime Danderson. Moving on to the two-player Scribe and LolCow decks, we have a Kiwi Tape, Smoking McCracken, Wrangler the Cow, and Medicor's Judgment are all from the Scribe two-player release decks. Next up is the Book Iron Gunslinger, and as well as the Disorder in the Court, which is found in the Scribe and the LolCow decks. And then last but not least, we have two cards from the WTF Horror House. We have a Bobaxic Avenger, as well as a Gunt. So Arctic, to start this off, I usually like to ask people which one was their favorite to create, but seeing as there's so many here, I'd like to ask a couple more questions than that. So, to start this off, which card was the most tedious to create?
Okay, the most tedious card to create for me, believe it or not, was the Disorder in the Courts. Because there's actually kind of a funny story with that one. Because that wasn't originally going to be a TCG card. I kind of just made it as like a fun little sketch. I think it was the day after he hit that guy with a bat. So I just kind of sketched it out as like a joke. So I did it like on this really big piece of paper because I was trying to do like the courtroom sketch art style. So the version that actually got used is like this weird like cropped down version that I had to like piece together. I basically had the artwork. I crushed it in Photoshop and I had to make everything line back up.
So, which card do you think was the easiest to create out of this lot?
Easiest. Okay, I'm primarily a traditional artist. So whenever I do a digital piece, the workflow is a lot quicker and it's not necessarily easier, it's just they happen a lot faster. So like Primetime Danderson, Kiwi and Smokey are the ones that like work quicker more so than easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Which card gave you the most enjoyment while creating them?
I think for me it was the Mediker's Judgment. I'm a long time, I don't want to say member of the cow community or whatever you want to say. I've been into this for many years, and I remember like listening to the kill stream back in the day, like kind of unironically, kind of not, and like Mediker was always one of my favorite guys. Getting to make another card of him is always a treat.
Yeah, you actually got to make two cards of him, so that's actually pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. Tuffy, the one of the head guys with LolCow TCG, he's kind of pegged me as like the Mediker guy. So whenever there's a Medicare card that's needed, he comes to me first.
Oh,
It's
so
pretty funny that
that's
way.
pretty cool. You're the Medicare go-to guy now.
He is my statesman, so it makes sense.
What is your specific origin story? How did you first get involved with illustrating for trading card companies, and is LolCow the first?
Yes, this is my first time ever doing like a TCG kind of thing. I've always kind of been around on the internet for as long as I can remember. Just kind of as like a wandering artist on like the 4chan draw boards throughout my years online. Through the Too High for Stupid actually is where I discovered the LolCow TCG, and so I reached out, and the first set, of course, was that Volume One, where it was actual artists that were commissioned to do some art for that, rather than the first Volume Zero being all the AI cards. And that was a lot of fun, just getting to basically it was whatever we thought up, we created for that first set. I was a lot of fun. So again, that was White Bowser was big back then, so I made the Genjin Gropa. The Medicare card, just because of course you need to have Medicare. Here's actually a fun story about the Bug Iron card. I actually made that sketch back when that originally happened, where Boogie shot at that guy. I did like just a little sketch. What was that, like 2020, 2021, something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, sometime during COVID. So it was just in one of my sketchbooks for years. And then when I found out about this TCG and I was making cards, I was like, hey, I have this kind of funny idea for a card. Can I turn this into an actual thing? Lo and behold, there it is.
And he has such a great ability too, just being able to negate any beatdown.
Yeah, and it's again, some people the reference might be lost to them. It's Marty Robbins' gunfighter ballads, Big Iron and Bug Iron. It was the pun was there. Like even back then, I was like, oh, it's Bug Iron.
So, what does your creative process entail whenever you're designing a trading card illustration? Do you usually like to start with your characters or your backgrounds?
So for me, I am when my day to day when I'm drawing just my things, I'm doing character design. So for me, it's always about the characters because as you can see, well, most of my backgrounds are fairly simple. I put so much more into my characters, getting the expressions, the poses, all that. When I'm not doing my day job, I'm trying to work on like my own like comics and that sort of thing. So character design has always been a fun thing, and especially with LolCows, being able to make these like weird grotesque versions of people are very, very fun for me. And an interesting thing about my process is I'm a traditional illustrator, like I've said, and I actually do pen and ink like the old school comic artists do. So most of my illustrations that are traditional are done pen and ink and then using alcohol markers and some colored pencils. So it's a little bit more of like a, not tedious, but like I have my methodical process when I'm creating my artworks.
Yeah, it just flows better for you to just put pen to paper pretty much.
Yes.
So, how much freedom do you feel that you receive whenever you're giving an illustration? Are there any guidelines that are extremely strict, or anything that just allows you to completely set your mind free?
I think there's a lot of freedom with this. Again, since it's a very slow to the ground and it's a very kind of like a niche of a niche of a niche. There aren't as many. There's hardly any like anything goes. I will say I did run into some issues. I've been censored by my higher ups once before already, and it's been a pretty funny thing. Because actually, with the Ethan Ralph Gunt card, I had originally had him reaching out to some pills that were spilled out in front of him, and apparently you can't get cards graded if they have drugs on them, so I had to censor my artwork.
So, given a card's small size, are there any challenges whenever you're trying to maximize the amount of detail that you're trying to convey?
So for me, as I've been doing this more and more, I've been learning some of those tricks of the trade. Especially since, like, for me, I come from a background of Magic the Gathering, and with that, seeing the artworks of those cards, it's all about creating that contrast with your color and making your figure stand out from that background. So, because like with my original couple of cards, I had my figure bold in the front and then a very simple color background. And even now with some of my current work, the more recent works, it's that same idea of having that color contrast with the figure and the background. So again, giving that the people who playing it that card recognition. So when you see a lot of blue and some red in the background, you know that's Bug Iron.
Oh, yeah.
And then actually the Mediker's Judgment is actually pulled pretty heavily from Watchmen, like the Watchmen comic where Dr. Manhattan's, out in
Oh, yeah.
Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. I've never pieced that together, but that's actually really cool. I can see
Yeah.
it now.
So yeah, it's the secrets there with, so of course you can see Ethan Ralph and a Tonka saw, but the one getting vaporized is actually Danny the Panda, which for the Medicare fans in the audience, that's a deep pull, but they know it if they hear it.
Can you tell us about a card illustration that you are particularly proud of and why? It could be one that maybe hasn't released or has released.
I'm really proud of the artwork. I know the person has kind of, the tune has changed, but it's the Cow Wrangler art, because I believe at some point in the discussions of what we would be doing for some of the sets, the idea of doing the original Gatewatch from Magic the Gathering as scribes was brought up. Because I believe there's one that's Liliana, that's that I don't know the YouTuber's name, but she has the pink Darth Vader helmet.
Oh,
So
Dark Side Becky?
yes, Darkside Becky. So I challenged myself. I wanted to make all the rest of the artworks. So the Wrangler was the one that got released. There was one, I believe, has gotten posted at some point, but I don't think it ever got made into a card itself. And that was Biff the werewolf as Garuk. I'll post that here in a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then there's also another one that hasn't gotten revealed at all ever, where it's based Shaman as Jace. So again, if you know your Magic the Gathering, you can imagine what that would look like. Because I sold prints of this past summer of the Biff the werewolf, so people know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Wow.
So I eventually need again, if I revisit this concept, I'm going to do a Chandra, and then I might even take a stab at my own version of the Dark Side Becky, just to have the 5 in my art style. Because there's a lot of work that I've done, sort of like on the side or like in the early days, that actually hasn't gotten released yet. Like it's just in the archives, waiting to be released one day. So I'm really excited for when those get shared.
Yeah, this is really cool. I really like this wolf.
Again, it's that idea of having, even though it's a very similar color scheme, I still wanted to make sure like that gray popped with the yellow background, and using a little bit more of like the muted greens in the background versus the very, I don't know, more military greens with figure himself.
Yeah, it looks really cool. It kind of reminds me of something from He-Man.
Yeah. I get that a lot actually. With I was in art college for some time, and my cohort definitely felt like that old school He-Man vibe from a lot of my art styles, which is kind of interesting to me. As soon as I figured out how to draw like muscles on like figures, like that very like bulky frames, it's one of my favorite things to draw. It's just a very bulky frame, because even like with the Toxic Avenger one, you could see that I really enjoy making that more muscly frame. It's just a very fun process for me to draw.
So, have you actually snuck in any Easter eggs into any of your cards?
I have actually, believe it or not. So it was, if you zoom in, really, really zoom into the spear of the Blowback's Toxic Avenger card. The thing that is on his little like spear, it's covered in goop, is actually a Keemstar gnome. This was before the partnership. I'll admit it, before the
Oh
partnership
wow.
with the LolCow Live. Believe it or not. Again, I'm a controversial opinion here. I'm a big Keemstar hater. I personally can't stand the guy, but that's just me.
Yeah, I
So.
love these little Easter eggs in cards. I don't know. I've always just been fascinated by Easter eggs in like games and stuff, and so it's
Mhm.
it's always just nice to see whenever it's
Yeah,
just randomly thrown in somewhere. That I
yeah.
just love the randomness.
Yeah, and then I guess another good one is if we go to the primetime Danderson. Of course, his number on his jersey is 43, which I know applies more so to the Cyrax universe, where code 43 is like a mentally unstable person. And then I did a cow on the shoulder as like the logo, which of course plays off of primetime being the Colorado coach, and they're the Buffaloes. So it's kind of a reference on top of a reference there. I come from like a football background too, believe it or not, and him trying to go talk to the coach Prime. Oh my goodness! Like I was cackling when I was watching that stream. It's oh my goodness. Even now, just thinking about it, like when your two interests collide like that, it's phenomenal.
So if you could introduce a new locale or scribe card to locale, who would it be and why?
Okay, so I've had this discussion before with Tuffy about doing a card. I've done the artwork for it, but again, I'm not going to share it quite yet because I want it to be a surprise when the time comes. Deadwing Dork. He is not really technically a scribe. He never really did like the lolcow stuff directly, but he just does like internet weirdos, and he has this whole other world of weirdos he looks at. But he was actually a YouTuber I started watching back in, I want to say, maybe 2017, 2018, I think was when he started posting. He just covering some weird like 4chan stuff and whatnot. But like that's where I discovered like King Cobra from his videos. He has some great quality content, and I really want to make him part of this like LolCow TCG universe.
If you could give that card one ability, what would you want it to be?
This is where I'm gonna burst your bubble here. I actually don't know shit about this card game. I don't know how it's played. No, not to be crass, but I don't know. It's a game I never really got too involved with. Again, I enjoy sharing my art with people, and that's kind of how much I extend with this community. I've never played it. I don't quite know how it's played beyond just like the tapes and stuff. Because again, I make the artwork. I just work here. Well, no, again, it's not that I don't care. It's just what is important to me about LolCows is sharing this goofy art that I make with the community.
Hey, without that, we
Um,
wouldn't have these cards in front of us, so I just thank you for that.
exactly. That's kind of the funny thing. I've been here. I feel like I'm one again, being for around since Volume 1. I'm one of the most tenured artists with that original crew, like Liquid Christina and a few others. So it's kind of been fun to see how this thing has grown exponentially.
Especially over the last year, it seems like this project is really just blown up.
Oh yeah, no, it's that has been I think the most fun for me is like telling my buddies or like my fiance like, hey, I do this thing. It's a little weird, but then like having to tell my buddies like, hey, I work for Keemstar now, technically speaking. It's or I have a partnership with Keemstar, all that. Oh, it's great.
So, what is it like seeing your artwork become part of a game that fans such as myself like to trade and collect?
It's a weird sense of pride. I guess I'll say that because again, I love that people are enjoying the art, but explaining this to anyone who isn't chronically online is one hell of a conversation. Let me tell you. Because again, it's like I said earlier. The LolCow TCG is a niche of a niche of a niche, and having to like be like, okay, I whenever I preface this to someone who doesn't spend all their time on the internet, I'm just like, it's a game about internet personalities and internet weirdos. And that's kind of the gist. But again, it's been so much fun to see this grow from just doing some silly artworks to like some actual like we're getting somewhere because I think they're wanting to do like conventions here soon too, so that'll be really fun.
Yeah, they're in June. They're coming down to Dallas for Collecticon, so that should
Yeah,
be a lot of fun.
I'm really hoping like next summer or the summer after I can start going to those two and doing like something up in my area to get that circuit going.
Do you currently see any trends in trading card art that you would like to implement in any of your future illustration? This could be from another trading card game, or your fellow LolCow artist?
Something I've always loved the idea of is, again, since I said I have that background with Magic the Gathering, is the artist series of the Secret Layers,
Oh
where it's
yeah.
like here's 5 cards, all from one artist, and they kind of just they let them go nuts. So I have been trying to vouch for when this gets a little bit bigger, having some of the artists do like a 5 card set, and then they get like their Secret Layer, whatever it's called, and I feel like that'd be a really fun thing to do. Because yeah, I've already like kind of planned out in my head what I want to do. Again, here are some deep pulls for those who know. So, like for me, like I said, I have a long history with the weird internet weirdo sphere. There was the mundane Matt. He'll be one I'd love to do. Dylan Thomas, who was a Christian scribe turned lolcow, and then Black Brains, who was kind of part of like the Deadwing Dork universe. He does a lot of stuff with like MF Doom. So those are 3 that I'd love to do as part of that series.
So, do you have any advice for an aspiring artist who wants to break into trading card art specifically?
That is a good question. It's actually kind of funny. I'm going to go on a little tangent here. One of my good friends is actually an illustrator now as well, and he got contracted to do like an MTG artwork, and he's doing stuff for DC now as well. So seeing his work and seeing my work, it's kind of been fun to like discuss how we both go through the process. I'll say it's like it's a stone versus a mountain when it comes to like that level of like doing the LolCow TCG versus Magic the Gathering or something like that.
Yep.
But it's not as, I don't want to say difficult, but again, you just kind of have to commit yourself to what you're doing. Even though it's like a little silly drawing of, some internet pedophile or something, if I could use that word, you still got to give it like you got to take your due diligence. If you're going to do a caricature of someone, just lambast him. If you're going to do something good, make it look good. Take it seriously, even if the content isn't serious.
Last question, best question for you, Arctic. Are you
Okay.
currently working on anything for LolCow that we hope to see in any upcoming releases?
Ooh, upcoming releases. Well, I'm not sure if I can talk about some of that. There are a few sets that are coming out soonish, TM question mark, where it's Steven Asante. Again, someone I'm not familiar with. It was pretty fun to work for him because he was one of those guys from My 600-Pound Life.
Yeah.
So, like I was talking about doing the gross caricatures, it's pretty grotesque for my style at least. A more recent one for LolCow Live, I got to replicate the South Park style, which is something I feel like
Ooh.
I'm really proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see.
So again, you'll have to wait for that. And then of course I'm eventually, hopefully, going to complete the cycle of Planeswalkers. And I've been talking with Tuffy about this one too. Doing a 6th card as like a cap off to that project and doing Medicare as Ugin. That's something that'll be a little bit ways down the lines, but that's something I'm really hoping I can get done is that Ugin Medicare.
Well, awesome. Everybody, you heard it here first. Arctic, I just want to thank you again for sitting down and doing this interview with me. I really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I like talking about my art, sharing my process and all that. Yeah, it's I can you get me talking and I just keep going.
Hey, it was a really good chat. I enjoy these conversations.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, well, thank you everybody for coming out to the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.